last week, we're introduced to this concept of Maya by Acharya Shunya through a series of, it was like we were looking at it from different angles and kind of warming ourselves up to this idea of Maya. She shared different stories, different analogies, different facets of this profound concept that is truly beyond our mind's conception, but we can kind of begin to come close to an understanding from these various angles. And today we'll receive the next 20 minutes or so of that same satsanga. And as we drop into this teaching today, I want to place an invitation in front of you, which is when we're hearing Acharya Shunya teach on these concepts of Maya, what she's describing, this pulling apart, this dissolving of our deeply held beliefs, so deep we don't even know we're believing it. We just think we're living. We just think we're existing. We're really playing with a part of our concept of reality, of what we really, truly, deeply think is orienting us. And we're playing with that identification. We're playing with that belief, that assumption of what seems foundational. So as you hear her speak in these satsangas, for us as students who have not yet had that revelation of truly experiencing what is Maya, what is Brahman, what's the difference, how are they linked, how are they all one? When we hear a teacher describe these kinds of concepts, it can feel far away. It can feel off into the future. It can feel almost sometimes like they're speaking in a very, very exaggerated way to kind of try to get us closer to a concept. But I invite you in these next 20 minutes or so of satsanga to keep entertaining this idea that maybe this is not an exaggeration. Maybe these are the closest words that describe this. Maybe when I take these teachings and bring them to their next logical conclusion, and that seems so like it rocks a deep, deep foundation. And my mind says that can't possibly be what she means, or there has to be an exception somewhere, or maybe it goes almost that far, but I don't think it goes quite that far. Just give yourself these 20 minutes. Soften that ego's resistance. And when the mind starts to step away from following her all the way there, say, I know, but just for these 20 minutes, let's just entertain and go all the way there. So I want to give you that invitation to let you know that in these next 20 minutes of satsanga, we're going to be taken deeply into a deep questioning. And the way that she delivers it is so warm and so palatable and so accessible, but don't doubt that it is talking about something so profound. So go ahead and go there in these next 20 minutes. It's okay. Reassure your ego, it's okay. And we'll also receive an answer to that question that all of us have, which is, all right, so if all of this is true, then why the heck is it there in the first place? So we'll receive an answer in the form of a story as well there. So take a moment to take a deep breath. We've shown up in this class. You may have been doing many things all day today. This is maybe your early morning. There are many things planned in your future, but know that for some reason, for some karmic purpose, for some Ishvara designed perfection, you've landed here in this satsanga live or with the recording at some point. So these messages are meant for you. So with that, I'd like to invite Acharya Shunya through the recording to come and take us forward for these 20 minutes.
So Maya tends to be beyond a regular human understanding, and so we get deceived by various phenomena. So the various meanings of Maya, the word Ma also means to measure. So because of Maya, what happens is that great Brahman that that pure consciousness, which is immeasurable, because it is beyond matter, becomes measurable, and the world of name and form is created. So first of all, the one becomes multiple. So all this world of variety is due to Maya. So Ma is equal to measure. Another word, Ma, also means to build, to create. So it tends to create appearances. Whether we dream and we see a whole world, that is also due to operation of Maya. And whether we see this world, that is also due to operation of Maya. So it creates that. And finally, Ma means not, and Ya means this. So not this, which gives the impression of being something, and yet it is not. That's the final, that is Ma. It's very interesting that the sages were able to look around and look at the nature of our bondage. And each one of us is born, and we just accept who we are, our biological, racial, cultural identity. And 99% of us live and die in that identity. And we live and die in that identity with its ego-based definitions of what it is. And it's a tragedy, because this Maya then becomes the holding space for the samsara to operate. Do you see that? It's because there is Maya everywhere, these samsaras can really function. So Maya feeds like our subjective samsara soups or mental soups. And all kinds of demons and goals and self-sabotaging sorrow breeds in that. And we live in terror of these mirages of what shall happen, what didn't happen. We're completely away from the presence of the now and the aroma of the flowers coming in or anything. And even those flowers and the trees and the woods and the birds and the animals. Imagine if you were in a landscape where everything was under a spell. And animals and birds, they are also under a spell, so they are kind of conditioned in that spell. They live and die. And they're like, they have to find a nest. Even a bird never asks, why am I a bird? Who am I? Why am I flying around? And sadly, even the well-developed human being doesn't ask that. And we just, knock against these samsara worlds, and we want to change furniture around, but we don't know why we live in the house. It's like suddenly we found ourselves in Hansel and Gretel's house, and we thought maybe I'll have strawberry icing on the windowsill instead of chocolate. That's all. But we don't know why we are there. Why are we in this cookie house, cookie and chocolate house? Or why are we doing things we don't know? And this spell, this enchanted spell, and its beings in this loka or in this universe, where all its beings are asleep, we then try to marry, copulate, manipulate, compete with, discredit, credit, and probably even put some people up so we can worship them. Here, in this spell, you go up the mountain so I can be below you and I can worship you. So we create our gods. And if we can't find a human being, we'll figure it out somewhere. Like, this mountain is really sacred, right here in the enchanted land. And all of us in spell will run around. That's how religions were created. But Vedanta doesn't mock all of this. Vedanta, in great compassion, reminds us that we forgot. And we forgot because this world was created. So it's very beautiful that, and the world of name and form, because of the presence of Maya. So it's almost like the power, like the magic and the magical round of fire, in the way there is pure consciousness, but there is this world of appearances, deceptive appearances that constantly change also, all the time. There's constant change. But when you look deeper and deeper, there is no world. Whether you look in quantum physics, there is no world. And even if you look through your own common experience, if you look deep inside a relationship, there is nothing but your subjective ties which create a relationship. There really is nothing. Even if you look at something as solid as wood, ultimately if you break it down into nanoparticles, that solid wood is nothing but infinite space. So any which way you look, what resembles like something really concrete at its existence is nothing but pure consciousness. So this is what's called as mithya or maya, which appears to be really concrete, bounds us, and we start having all kinds of relationship with it, of likes and dislikes. But ultimately it's a spell, and here I am to tell you, wake up from that spell. And stop hating other people who are caught up in the spell. There are some people more in that spell. There might be some that is waking up from the spell. And the whole goal of our spiritual work here, and the whole goal of cleansing our samsara, or purifying it, because Vedanta says the beauty of it. We don't have to be under the bondage of the spell forever, because we can, through understanding, not operate like zombies under a spell, but with understanding, penetrate through this maya, and then experience our truly infinite, powerful, blissful nature. And it is really important not only to take stock of our independent, subjective minds that are dealing with unconsciousness, but also look at the collective unconsciousness, which is known as Maya, through which this whole universe of appearances and multiplicity and concreteness has emerged. Just like when you fell asleep, suddenly a skyscraper emerged just between in your internal landscape. A huge skyscraper, intergalactic travel, all those really concrete worlds. Did you not visit them in your dreams? They were there. In the same way, what if I told you that even though, and when you were in the dream world, you didn't say, this skyscraper is not real. It was real. You were looking for the elevator to climb that staircase. You were very concerned throughout the night dreaming to climb that landscape. Because you didn't question the reality of that skyscraper in your dream, did you? You didn't. You started questioning it when you started coming out of your sleep, is it not? When you started coming out and then you woke up and said, oh, no problem, I didn't get the elevator. After all, the skyscraper was not real. So that's called bursting the maya that had taken over you in your dream. And so you woke up from it. Similarly, I, as your Vedanta teacher, is trying to tell you that don't get too caught up in fixing furniture in this world. Try to wake up. Instead of trying to fix a poorly leaky relationship that leaks all the time, observe it. And as you observe it, it's going to stop being so powerful. It's just going to show and reveal a terribly hypnotized, spellbound being at the end of it. And it's our job to wake up. And when we wake up is when we inherit our true, or we awaken to our true, absolute, powerful nature. And then we can live in this spellbound world, but not be off it, not be bewitched by it, and not be caught up by it. And that is the end of suffering. In the Maya, we're getting somewhere. From your faces I can tell. So therefore, don't take this reality also. That's what happens. When we are in the dream world, we take that reality so seriously. That I want to tell you that even this reality, this is the second level of reality. It's an empirical reality. But even your empirical reality, I quoted physics, and I'm giving other examples, does not have the same kind of substantiveness as you give it to be. And that there is a third and absolute reality known as Paramarthika in Sanskrit, which is the reality of your true self, which is awaiting you. But this knowledge can empower you that after all the people are bewitched by Maya. So she could also be described as the bewitching, sorceress-like power. And because of Maya, the world, we cannot see the one. We cannot see one Brahman. So we only see multiplicity. And we say, what are you talking about oneness? What about my enemy? What about my, X? What about my mother-in-law? What about those people who are terrorists? What about this? What about that? So we're caught up in that, and that's what it is. But mental health, spiritual health, it gets really facilitated by Vedanta when it starts giving us these very big concepts. It definitely pulls our intellect in various ways to get out of our concrete jammies that we are wearing. Yeah, let's get out of our concrete jammies, and lead those bewitched, walk like an Egyptian, right? Those kind of, have you seen that song, right? Walk like an Egyptian, and you're like walking like that. Don't do that. It's like, wait, is this a Maya conditioning that I'm lamenting for what is not worth lamenting? I'm craving for what's not worth craving, and I'm craving for this human life to go a certain way when nobody has been able to really control it, and the only really way is to awaken from it. So awakening in Advaita then also means is to prick the bubble of the samsara soup, right? Prick it, like break it down, not be constantly feeding our unconscious attachments and desires, and then also looking at a collective inducement of an hypnotic state where we get again and again sucked into being asleep and having zombie-like behavior. Now, some of you, when you come here on a weekly basis, do you feel more awake? Yes? Yes. But then when if I'm gone for a couple of weeks, or if you don't hear this, or if you can't make it, don't you feel like your suffering has increased? Yes or no? Yes. Why? Because when you come in here, I hold the collective mind of this space. There is a collective mind, and then there is an individual mind concept in Advaita Vedanta. The collective mind is known as Samashti, and the individual mind is known as Vayashti. So in the collective mind, what I do is, because I'm staying awake and I'm talking about awakening knowledge, you also wake up. And for a little bit, you think beyond your conditioning. You think beyond your limitations. And through this space, you're able to recreate yourself. And in that recreation, you find that you thought you just had this much space to recreate, but you actually had infinite space to recreate yourself. Because infinity is actually the law, not finitehood. Even in health, infinity is the law, not finitehood. Health is not a finite commodity. Your love is not a finite commodity. Your happiness is not a finite commodity. That my childhood was so terrible, I'm shut down forever. That's just your samsara mind steeped in Maya telling you that. So we hold on to our wounds, we hold on to our physical viruses and our genetics and our difficulties, and we create this little thing, and this is what happens in Maya. And this is where we should be aware of this hypnotic spell that is happening. Now another teacher, Swami Chinmayanand, whose commentary you have read when we were studying Tattva Bodh, was studying with his teacher Swami Tapovanananda, I think, on the banks of river Ganga, and they were having a discussion like this on Maya, and Swami Chinmayanand said, why this Maya? I could just be Brahman. Why this Maya? Why this world of multiplicity, names and forms? Let me just be my original Swarupa. This is what a lot of students say, things like that. So Swamiji didn't answer, but then he asked, his teacher didn't answer, but then his teacher said, can you get me a cup of water? And back in those days, you have to go to the river a couple of miles down to get the water. And you're not just going to give stale water to your teacher, you're going to get fresh, bubbly spring water for your teacher. So Chinmayanand said, my teacher doesn't want to answer me. On top of that, he has given me such difficult seva to go down the rocks in the river to go get him water. So I bet he went muttering and guttering and to get the water. But he had so much shraddha or faith, he went anyway. Got the water back, and he offered this kalash, or what's a container of water, a traditional container of water made of copper, to his teacher to say, Sire, you wanted water. His teacher got very angry and said, "Did I ask you to give me a cup? I asked for water." So the Chinmayanand got the answer that if you want to taste Brahman, if you want to smell Brahman, if you want to touch Brahman, if you want to inhale Brahman, then you shall need the world of name and forms and textures. You need Maya so that you can experience Brahman. And so therefore all these names and forms of this world helps manifest Brahman. Okay? So pure existence, which is Brahman or pure consciousness, manifests these objects. But then these multiple objects of name and form, they reveal Brahman too, or pure consciousness. To the enlightened one, this whole world, from the pot to the pebble, to the poor widow, to the spider, the whole world of name and form reveals that one Brahman. And to the asleep one, they say, "Where is Brahman? Where is Brahman?" There is only the spider and the widow and the bad guy and the good guy and the black guy and the yellow guy and the pink guy and the red guy. Maybe, So, to the asleep one, they find that there is a superimposition and Brahman gets concealed by names and forms. You understand name and form? But to those who are studying and awakening, even in the most devilish person, they wait to see, Brahman, look what magic show. Good and bad is happening, dark and evil is happening. Do you see that? What a magic show. Have you seen those brilliant sunrise? And under that brilliant sunrise, some gory act of incest or violence. What is this magic show? What's going on here? It doesn't make sense in the ultimate level. And that is why when we start stepping away from it and noticing it, we actually have already connected to another level, which is the observer of the magic show and not just the participant. I am a participant in the magic show right here, but I'm also an observer of the magic show, and that is my strength. And I am observe it with knowledge, not with regret, not with name calling it, but saying, and the rishis began with here and now. Look, this is our experience. We're all here caught up in an amazing Disneyland of experiences that come incessantly one after another. Incessantly. And we can make logic of them, and we have tried to make logic of them, such as karma and all of that, but let's get the real big picture here. And the real big picture is, it's not logical. And the good news is that in spite of all of this, this is really Brahman experiencing Brahman. This is really the absolute pure consciousness experiencing itself through name, through form, through texture, through smell, through touch, through taste, through inhalation. So if you want to smell Brahman, you actually need the physical flower. And that physical flower in the form of Brahman is then really an act of Maya. So Brahman is the power of, so Maya is the power of Brahman. It is not separate from Brahman because all of it goes back. So when we start knowing this knowledge and we start meditating on Brahman through the names and forms, gradually this magic show the power goes away to shock us, to surprise us, to catch us in infinite loops of thinking, deductive and inductive, and we start becoming more still and observing it. And as we observe it, we stop, our samsara or our inner mind stops being so reactive and so unconsciously reactive on top of it. You know, when my son was young, he's 22, but from age 6 to age 11, we went every year to Disneyland. And we went to the horror house, right? And every year they managed to horrify you. Have you been there? In the horror house, every year they managed to horrify you. And, I would scream no matter what. And my son loved it. Mom, you got scared, right? Mom, you got scared. I didn't scream, you screamed. So it was a very interesting aspect of my son feeling like he had to hold me and help me through the process. So I said, wow, this is so interesting that I know that it's a setup and still I get scared. So the last time I went in, I said, I'm just going to go through my observer consciousness. And I didn't get scared. And although my son didn't want to accept that, so I said, that's fine, thanks for holding my hand, thanks for being with me. But, when you become aware, when you go into that space and you're already aware, then nothing spooks you, gets you, shocks you, scares you, and that's when this is the interesting thing. Just like when you look at those nanoparticles, they do different things based on your looking. So as you look from the state of knowledge, the whole magic show calms down. So how much furniture were you going to move around? And why? Move it around. We are doing some cleaning up here at Vedika. But ultimately, how about we let this calm down? Let's wake up even from this concrete looking, feeling, touching, smelling dream.
So now we'll take our 5 minutes of silent contemplation. So you're welcome to unmute yourself if your space allows. We can be in silence together. And the question for yourself is simply, what has entered my ears in this past receiving of this satsanga? What resonates with me? What I just heard, what of what I just heard resonates within me? Keep coming back to your inner experience of this teaching, letting go of the need to remember all of the concepts or outline what she spoke. What is your inner experience from hearing these words? Come back to, what has this teaching uncovered from within me? What knowing has emerged? Or what ignorance or confusion has been dislodged? Observing the impact that this satsanga has had on your being. In this final 1 minute of our contemplation, allow your deepest insight to crystallize. What name, what form, what shape does your now knowing, your new insight have? I invite you now to deepen your breath, become ready to return back to our room together. If you'd like, you can write a few notes for yourself or anything that emerged that you'd like to recall. So I have a few notes of just some of the key points that she seemed to make that kind of echo throughout. But before I share those, I want to just simply open the floor. Um, would anyone like to share either what insight has emerged for them and or particularly what was the experience like of hearing these teachings? What did it feel like when they landed for you? What was that experience like? I'd love to hear. Yeah. Or any insight or share you'd like to add. Kalyani.
I was really struck by her her answer to that question as to why we experience Maya, that it's this way of experiencing Brahman, this multisensory way that as we awaken to the in that absolute, in that paramarthika, that absolute level of reality that we are that Brahman, and there is this Brahman that is all pervading and beyond what is happening in the world. But in order for us to come to know that we have to also be able to experience it, and that it goes the other way as well, that if we're not that we have to be awakened to that absolute in order to be able to appreciate that the experiences are Brahman, and the multi-sensory experiences, right? In the scent of the aroma of the flower, or in the sound of the birds, or whatever it may be. And I was actually kind of beginning to churn this. This was reminding me a bit of Acharya Shunyaji's some of her bhakti teachings about this journey of coming to see, because she was saying that Maya was a power of Brahman. And so, for me, when I hear this, that all of this Maya, as she was saying, like, wow, this magic show, what comes is like this wonder and softness and awe at everything that Brahman has manifested for us to be able to experience Brahman. And so there's a bhakti, this sense of loving devotion that comes with that. And so, going back to what she had shared in those teachings about these different paths not being so different and really overlapping, and bhakti holding the other paths if I'm thinking about this correctly, this concept of Maya being this multisensory experience of Brahman really served as a connection point for me to some of that disposition of, or that experience of bhakti.
Thank you, Kalyani. Yeah. So what I hear in your share is you're highlighting that this Maya can be an entry point to us understanding and receiving and experiencing and appreciating and dissolving ourselves into Brahman when we're on this awakening path. Or it can be the barrier, the veil, the hard stop against which we keep knocking into if we see it as not a manifestation of Brahman, but just these things. And that when you consider those ways of engaging with Brahman and what Maya's role can be in our journey, this feeling of bhakti, this feeling of heartfelt devotion arises in you. Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Kalyani. I see. Kavya shares, hearing this was an experience of dissolution for me. From the standpoint of this awakening knowledge, appearances of Maya begin to seem more and more fragmented. Mm, thank you. Suchira, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you, Sadhvi Ishani. For me, I think the thing that really stood out for me is when Shunyaji said, taking the observer stance. And it's interesting because I try doing it, and then I observe that I'm actually getting caught up in that itself. So I think hearing her today, it kind of reiterates and reassures the need to take that observer's stance. But at the same time, there's a question that I'm sitting with, that how do I stop from getting caught up in that cycle? Because sometimes as an observer also, I see myself starting to engage, and then I'm observing that engagement itself, actually, like, oh, I'm engaging now, I need to back out. So it's interesting that she said that, and I do it. So I'm trying to probably make some coherence for myself onto that specific teaching.
Right. Yes. Right. So you're describing that coming into that observer mode, watching ourselves be the actor, watching ourselves engage in this world of Maya is one thing. And then the next little leap that we're taking here is to say, seeing it as Maya, like looking at it as Maya, rather than we can observe and say these are laws of karma, these are laws of nature. So to try to see it all inside of the coherence or the logic we're trying to create is one step of stepping back. And she's inviting us to take one more step back and see it as Maya. And what she says happens is that step back kind of unplugs Maya. It kind of that's a misspoke. I don't mean it unplugs Maya. What I mean is it calms it down. It settles it down. We see through it. It's like it's a hologram, and then we're like, oh wait, you're happening. You have a source beyond. Um, yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you're experimenting in that very subtle space. Hmm. Anyone else like to bring something forward at this moment? Sakshi.
Jema, um, listening to this teaching, I I had the image of when Shunyaji would speak about we are the wave of the ocean, and I tried to imagine what that wave feels like once it becomes part of the ocean again, and and then I tried to think of what it would feel like for my separate consciousness to go into that divine consciousness. And And with that, I'm not always sure what is that feeling or what happens. That has always been something that I get caught up in, that I understand the idea of Brahman here on earth would be the same as the flower and the scent of the flower. And that's beautiful. And then I think of my consciousness merging with the supreme consciousness. And what is that? Is that just maybe something that we don't really have the words for? But I'm also hoping that it is something that is pure, not something that is just um, a vacuum.
Thank you, Sakshi, for bringing this question. I've also faced that what I have described for myself as an existential fear, like, but if I dissolve, do I still exist? I mean, I don't know if this is the question in your mind, but that question comes also. And yes, your point is that it's going beyond Maya. So when we're talking about what will my consciousness feel when it is dissolved, that's exactly what Maya offers us, is the ability to sense, to feel, to experience Brahman through this Maya creation. And so you're questioning what happens when I am beyond I've resolved back into the power that is allowing Maya to manifest these things. What happens when I come back into that source essential place? Yes. Thank you, Sakshi, for sharing with us that deep contemplation. Yeah. I see Parisa and then Cheryl. Parisa.
Hello everyone. Um, this Satsanga reminded me of a line in one of Adi Shankaracharya's poems, the one named Brahma Ginyani Valimala. I'm not sure if I'm saying the name correctly. That line remained with me because I didn't understand the meaning. It was, I am not a doer nor an experiencer. Adi Shankaracharya was giving this definition or description about Brahman. I think what I heard today, what I learned today from our dear teacher was that we can look at Maya as as a site or as a space that gives us as um, parts of Brahman the opportunity to experience. And this was not in itself very clear for me, and it is not still. I need to contemplate it. But as in our 5 minutes that we were contemplating in silence together, I remembered a piece of poetry from Rumi, in which he says he sees it this way. It is his opinion. Um, he's talking to God or Brahman or that concept, that big concept of the creator, maybe the one from whom everything emerges. He says, you have made this I and we so that you can experience serving yourself. I find this very deep and very difficult to really really contemplate and, absorb in. But anyway, I find it very related to today's satsang and the line from Adi Shankaracharya's writing and what we are contemplating here together. Thank you.
Thank you, Parisa, for giving us these other words to describe that experiencing, experiencer. Yeah. And in the chat, before we come to Cheryl, I just want to, because it seems related, there's Holly has shared in the chat. Could you explain more about how we need Maya to experience Brahman or connect with Brahman? Yeah. So the description here that we received was that Brahman, that pure consciousness that is ever expansive, that is just simply awareness, that contains the potential for all things, to be able to experience itself. It's like to be able to experience itself. It has this power of Maya, which projects this illusion of name and form, projects divisions, projects categories, separations in the forms of objects and people and experiences and all these things. So I sometimes think, like, if I'm looking into a tumbler, a perfectly still, clear tumbler of water, if I gaze at that, I may not know if there's water inside or not, because it's perfectly clear and perfectly still. But when there are waves, the water is still the water, but now I'm perceiving these waves. So like that, the Maya projects this perceptible form and shape, and gives a illusion, projects the experience of us being separate people with different time zones and different nature, ecological places and landforms and food and relationships and all the things. Because of those shapes and forms, we're able to perceive Brahman inside of them. So this is some connection as to why that's there. Because once we go deep into that state of Brahman, it's pure awareness. There's nothing to perceive because it is pure awareness itself. So these names and forms gives us something to perceive. And yet it's not separate from Brahman. And that's the key thing also to keep in mind. This Maya is not something separate or pulled away from. We're not looking at something separate from us. We're seeing these projected shapes and forms inside of that field of consciousness. So perhaps that helps there. And one more share. Cheryl, will come to you just now. I'll read from Sarah. Hearing these teachings gave me a glimpse of ultimate truth. It felt like a veil was lifted and I wanted to laugh. Yeah, a laugh of pure joy and understanding. I just wish I knew how to remember. Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing for the past couple of weeks is I've been sitting with this satsanga and watching and rewatching. She keeps asking us this question, like, how much furniture are you really going to move around? And that keeps coming back to me, where she's saying, how much furniture are you really going to move around? And that's come back to me in many, many moments in the past few weeks of a joyful laughter, even as I'm dealing with heavy things and real things, in life. And then I step back into that observer and step further back into seeing it actually as a projection of Maya. This is an opportunity to perceive Brahman. This is an opportunity to question, how much of this furniture am I really going to move around? Yeah. Cheryl, can I hear from you, please? Yes. Let's unmute you. Can you unmute yourself there? Yes.
Yeah. Hearing Shunyaji saying that the fragrance of the flower is Brahman, it really brought tears. I got a moment of realizing that in the making efforts to be a witness, to see the theater of life, I think I've been downgrading the fragrance of the flower. I've been kind of limiting it. And what my new approach is now to just get the purity of that experience without naming, without holding on, without pushing it away, but just to get that, I mean, to make that contact with that aspect of Brahman right in this life. And I think that probably applies to laughter. I mean, I'm not sure if it applies to the negative things as well. Maybe so, but love and laughter and all the goodness that happens in the course of the day. I just feel I want to appreciate them more again without holding on. But I think I've been kind of limiting them in some way, and it's kind of heartbreaking. But I think maybe I need to do that for a while in order to get the skill of a certain amount of detachment.
Thanks, Cheryl, for shining that light on. There is a phase of detachment where we separate ourselves out. And then from that vantage point, we're able to see, we're able to more clearly, with little space, perceive that Brahman is there inside of all of it. Yeah. So Holly brings a further question that in the creation of those categories and forms, why are some things lovely, like flowers, and others terrible, like genocide? Why can't we just have flowers? Yeah. Why can't it all just be light? Like, why can't it all just be pure and good? Yeah. So this question we have to sit with, and Shunyaji, Acharya Shunya has touched on this from a couple of ways. And the two ways that I've heard her most accessibly speak to this point is one, the things that we call light and dark, ugly and lovely, are subjective. Are subjective. There is not an objective good and bad, light and dark. And if you go deeply into even crimes people commit, even things like genocide, there are people who genuinely are of a belief that it's good, which is abhorrent to many of us. But we can say that there are people having a different subjective experience, causing them to take different subjective actions. So that's one that she says, is that our perception of good and bad, light and dark, is subjective. And the examples she gives of that is we see a sunset, a handful of people will look at it and say, it's the most beautiful thing. They're saying, I see Brahman, I see beauty, I see the divine in this sunset. Someone else looks at the sunset and says, the darkness is coming, my depression is coming, my insomnia is coming, I hate to see the sunset. So like that, we can come up with many, many examples, but like that, the same one external thing in this common jagat, in this common collective world, has a very different subjective experience to individuals. So that's one explanation that she gives, not of why it's there, but of our perception of it. And the second piece that she also says is we have to, and this is again, this contemplation goes very, very deep because it's saying to us, we have to see it as a projection. It doesn't have the reality we think it has. That there is this Brahman that even inside of the birth and the flowering and the decay of the flower exists Brahman. In the saving and healing of human beings, in the atrocious destruction of human beings, inside of all of that is the same Brahman, which is untouched, unchanged, pure conscious awareness. And that those projections of categories, name, shape, form, things that some people think are good, people think are bad, are the Maya projections. And that's very hard to wrap our mind around. And it feels uncomfortable to put our heart in, entertain. But it is that deep, deep, deep truth of oneness that these teachings are guiding us toward, while at the same time saying, but until we wake up to that, we are existing inside of this transactional world where we stand up for what is right, where we feed the hungry, we protect the weak, we act with dharmic um, thoughts and intentions and actions. So it doesn't say that we should just kind of like zone out and start feeling like we're in some kind of virtual reality world and we don't have to do anything. We have to act inside of this world. So yes, it's pulling us in many, many directions, this concept. But it's saying when we see through it, and that was the other very fascinating point she's bringing about that observer, that when we see Maya for what it is, as a projection of Brahman, so that Brahman can experience itself through this projected reality that Maya creates, the observing of it changes it. And that's interesting to contemplate also. I don't think we'll walk away from this satsanga feeling like, okay, now this satsanga again will continue to give us more questions, more to churn with, but seeing through it changes it as well, changes what we observe. And that is also something to explore and experiment with. Yeah. So the quote that she had was, through understanding, we can penetrate through Maya and experience our infinite nature. Observe Maya, and as you observe it, it will stop being so powerful. Yeah. Victoria shares, when something is ugly or challenging, I have to remind myself that I have a choice, and all is Brahman, the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly. Lately, I remind myself to see Brahman in the people who may be unkind to me while putting in boundaries. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel we're sitting here as we close today with a bit of are we feeling heavy or are we feeling light? Are we feeling, maybe you can put in a word of how we're feeling at this moment. Does this knowledge of Maya, these questions that you're sitting with, does it feel heavy? Does it feel disorienting? Does it feel freeing? Does it feel light? Does it feel, yeah? I'm feeling that it feels heavy for me today. Yeah, okay. Feeling contemplative, still feeling relief, illuminating, need to sit with it longer. Beautiful. Like a thick fog I need to clear away. Light, but we'll watch again. Others say absolutely freeing. Just feeling fullness. Yeah. So I invite you to re-watch this satsanga component a few times. Deeper understanding with more to contemplate, a bit mind-blowing. Yeah, it has a explosive quality to our concept of reality. Awakening and a good challenge need time to contemplate the fullness of it. So the invitation I have for you is what I'm gathering from what you're saying, and it just kind of I'm feeling from the room that we're in, is that there's more to contemplate here. And I invite you to, with whatever you're feeling right now, whether it's a heaviness, whether it's a confusion, whether it's a uncertainty, or feeling freeing and full, I invite you to not look away from that, We've just received a satsanga that has exploded parts of our thinking, has expanded parts of our thinking. And whatever you're feeling right now, look toward it. And the way to look toward it is to rewatch that satsanga again, is to contemplate it and kind of experiment with it in your life. But this is a gift to be given these teachings. And it's tempting. The mind and the ego, it very much wants you to say, that was interesting. Now let's put that away and go on with business as usual. Let's not come next week because we don't know what Acharya Shunya is going to tell us then. And again, next week we will continue with this piece of satsanga, where we'll be within the same satsanga for another 20 minutes only. So we're taking this in slivers. So I invite you to not look away. I invite you to go deeper into this contemplation gently and just be with it. Yeah. Jayanti says it feels like a hammer, like the Bhajagovindam. Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you. I want to appreciate each of you for coming, whether it's now, whether it's in our recording, for exposing yourself so vulnerably to these teachings. It takes courage and trust to allow yourself to be exposed to these kinds of teachings that make you question in such a deep way and give you this kind of food for thought. So I'm grateful to be in this room with you all. So with that, we will close and meet again next week to continue this exploration of Maya, continue looking a bit more at its mechanics. And I would love to hear what you bring either through the forum in between then or what you bring next week of how this contemplation this week has sat with you.